Did people in the Middle Ages really only bathe once a year? Was everyone walking around covered in filth? Did kings and queens smell as bad as peasants? You might be shocked to discover the truth about medieval hygiene. Number 1. The shocking truth about medieval bathing habits. Ever wondered if those history books got it all wrong? They might have. For centuries, we've pictured medieval folks as dirty, smelly people who feared water and avoided bathing at all costs. But guess what? That's not entirely accurate. Archaeological evidence and historical documents tell a different story. People in medieval times actually valued cleanliness, though their practices differed from our modern standards. Public bathhouses were common throughout medieval Europe, especially in cities and towns. These establishments weren't just places to get clean, they were social hubs where people gathered, gossiped, and even conducted business. In medieval London, bathhouses called stews were popular until the 16th century. Paris had at least 32 public bathhouses by the late 13th century. German cities were particularly fond of their bathhouses, with some towns requiring citizens to bathe regularly as part of city ordinances. The idea that medieval people rarely bathed comes partly from later periods. During the Renaissance and early modern era, 16th–18th centuries, bathing actually became less common due to fears that water opened the skin's pores to disease. This decline in bathing habits was then mistakenly projected backward onto the medieval period by later historians. Number 10. Royal hygiene. Did kings and queens stink? Did royalty smell as bad as we imagine? Not likely. Medieval nobility took cleanliness seriously. Royal households had elaborate bathing rituals that would surprise most modern people. King Louis IX of France had special servants whose sole job was to prepare his baths. English King Edward IV employed a groom of the stool, a prestigious position despite its bathroom-related duties, who assisted with the king's hygiene needs. Queen Isabella of Castile reportedly boasted that she had only taken 2 baths in her life, but this was considered unusual even in her time. Royal bathing tubs were often luxurious affairs. Some were lined with linen sheets filled with heated water carried bucket by servants and scented with herbs like lavender, chamomile, and marjoram. After bathing, royals might be rubbed with perfumed oils made from flowers, spices, or even ambergris, a substance from sperm whales for the especially wealthy. Court records show regular purchases of soap, wash basins, and bathing supplies for royal households throughout the medieval period. Far from avoiding cleanliness, the medieval nobility often used their bathing habits to display their wealth and status. A perfumed, well-groomed appearance demonstrated that you had the resources to maintain personal hygiene. Number 9. Monastery madness, cleanliness and godliness. Were monks the cleanest people in medieval society? There's strong evidence they might have been. Monastic rules often required regular washing as part of religious discipline. The rule of Saint Benedict, followed by Benedictine monks since the 6th century, stated that monks should wash regularly and that the sick should bathe whenever necessary. Monastery plans from the 9th century show designated areas for washing, and many monasteries had sophisticated plumbing systems that brought fresh water for bathing and sanitation. Carthusian monks were required to take full baths several times a year, a practice that was actually quite frequent for the time. Some monastic orders even had rules about when to change clothes and how often to wash them. Monasteries often served as centers for medical knowledge, and monks understood the connection between cleanliness and health better than many of their contemporaries. They passed this knowledge on through their medical practices and writings. Monastery infirmaries had special provisions for bathing the sick, reflecting an understanding that cleanliness aided recovery. However, some religious leaders did criticize excessive bathing as vain or potentially sinful, especially when public bathhouses became associated with prostitution. This complex relationship between religious values and hygiene created varying practices across different orders and time periods. Number 8. The steamy secrets of medieval bathhouses. Did medieval people have something similar to modern spas? Absolutely. Public bathhouses were major social institutions in medieval towns and cities. These establishments offered more than just a quick wash. Many provided hot tubs, steam rooms, massages, hair washing services, and even food and drink. People would spend hours there socializing with friends or business associates. Some bathhouses had separate sections for men and women, while others allowed mixed bathing at certain times. Bathhouse culture was particularly vibrant in the Byzantine Empire and in areas influenced by Islamic culture, where ritual cleansing held religious significance. When Crusaders returned from the East, they brought some of these bathing customs back to Europe. In many German towns, visiting the bathhouse was a weekly tradition, typically on Saturday. Town records show that some cities employed official bath masters who oversaw the bathhouses and ensured water quality and proper service. However, bathhouses eventually gained a reputation for prostitution and immorality. By the late 15th century, syphilis outbreaks caused authorities to close many public bathhouses, fearing they contributed to disease spread. This decline in public bathing facilities contributed to changing hygiene practices in later centuries. Number 7. Soap stories, medieval cleaning products. Was medieval soap anything like what we use today? Not exactly, but it was surprisingly effective. Medieval soap was typically made from animal fat tallow or vegetable oils mixed with lye created from wood ashes. These ingredients were boiled together and then allowed to cure for several months. The resulting product was often sold in hard blocks that could be shaved or dissolved in water for use. Soap making was an established craft with specialized guilds in many European cities by the 12th century. Marseille in France and Castile in Spain became famous for their soap production, with Castile soap remaining a recognized product even today. For those who couldn't afford manufactured soap, there were alternatives. Wood ash mixed with water creates a mildly alkaline solution that can remove oils and dirt. Fuller's earth, a clay-like substance, was used to absorb grease and clean hair. Many plants like soapwort and horse chestnuts contain natural saponins that create a lather when crushed and mixed with water. The wealthier classes used scented soaps perfumed with herbs, flowers, or precious spices. Records from royal households show purchases of expensive imported soaps scented with lavender, rose, or bay leaves. These luxury items served both practical and status purposes. Getting clean while smelling pleasant was a mark of refinement. Number 6. Toilet talk, medieval bathroom habits. Did medieval castles really have waste falling down their outer walls? Not usually. Medieval sanitation was more sophisticated than many people realize. Many castles and wealthy homes had guardrobes, private toilets built into the walls with chutes that carried waste to cesspits or moats. Some of these systems were quite ingenious, using water flow to help remove waste or positioning toilets over running water when possible. London had public latrines built over the River Thames and other waterways. Paris had a network of cesspits that were regularly emptied by workers known as night soil men. These systems weren't perfect by modern standards, but they show that medieval people were concerned about waste management. Archaeological excavations of medieval cities have uncovered sophisticated drainage systems, particularly in monasteries and wealthy urban areas. The Cluniac Monastery at Lewes, England, had a complex water system that flushed waste away from living areas. Personal hygiene after using the toilet involved various materials. Wealthy people might use wool, linen, or hemp, while others used moss, leaves, or straw. In some regions, people used a sponge attached to a stick called a tersorium, which was rinsed in water between uses, a practice inherited from Roman times. Number 5. Medieval hair care, combs, braids, and lice. Did medieval people just let their hair grow wild and dirty? The evidence suggests quite the opposite. Archaeological digs frequently uncover combs made of bone, wood, or ivory, showing that hair care was important across all social classes. These combs often had teeth of different widths, fine teeth for removing lice and nits, and wider teeth for detangling hair. People washed their hair with various concoctions. Rosemary-infused water was popular for dark hair, while chamomile was used for lighter hair. Egg whites, vinegar rinses, and various herb mixtures served as primitive shampoos and conditioners. Hairstyles were often elaborate, especially for women and the nobility. Women typically wore their hair long, often braided or covered with veils, nets, or headdresses depending on their social status and local customs. Men's hairstyles varied by period and region. Short hair became fashionable after the Norman conquest of England, while longer styles returned during later medieval periods. Beards and mustaches went through fashion cycles throughout the medieval period. They required maintenance with specialized scissors and razors, which barbers provided along with haircuts. Barber shops served as important hygiene centers where men could get groomed and sometimes receive minor medical treatments. Dealing with lice was a universal concern. Fine-toothed combs were used to remove them, and various remedies like mercury, vinegar, or herb mixtures were applied to deter these unwelcome inhabitants, though these treatments varied in effectiveness and safety. Number 4. Dental details. Teeth in the Middle Ages. Was everyone in medieval times walking around with blackened, rotting teeth? Not necessarily. Archaeological examination of medieval skeletons shows varying levels of dental health. While tooth decay certainly existed, especially among the wealthy who could afford sugar, many ordinary people had surprisingly good teeth. Their diet, which included coarse bread that cleaned teeth while being chewed and minimal sugar, contributed to better dental health than we might expect. People did clean their teeth using various methods. Twigs frayed at the end to form a crude brush called chew sticks, cloths rubbed against the teeth, and various powders made from herbs, salt, or charcoal were all used for dental hygiene. Medieval medical texts include recommendations for dental care. The 12th century Abbess Hildegard of Bingen suggested preventive measures like rinsing the mouth with warm water in the morning. Other medical writers recommended various mouthwashes made with herbs like mint, sage, or rosemary steeped in wine or vinegar. For toothaches and other dental problems, people sought help from barbers or specialized tooth drawers. These practitioners would extract painful teeth without anesthesia, a dreaded but sometimes necessary procedure. Some wealthier individuals had teeth replaced with animal teeth or carved bone attached with gold wire, primitive but functional dentures. Number 3. Fashion hygiene. Keeping clothes clean. Did medieval people wear the same dirty clothes for months on end? The historical record suggests otherwise. While ordinary people owned fewer garments than we do today, they still maintained what they had. Clothing was valuable and worth preserving. Linen undergarments, which absorbed body oils and sweat, were worn beneath outer clothing and changed and washed relatively frequently by those who could afford multiple sets. Washing methods varied by fabric type. Linen and hemp could be boiled with lye soap, while wool required gentler treatment using fuller's earth or stale urine. The ammonia content helped remove grease and oil. After washing, clothes would be stretched on tenters, wooden frames, to prevent shrinking as they dried. Professional launderers existed in most towns, though many households handled their own washing. Laundry was typically done near water sources using wooden tubs, washboards, and beating paddles. It was hard work, often performed by women or specialized servants in wealthy households. When full washing wasn't practical, medieval people used other methods to refresh clothing. Airing garments in sunshine or smoke helped eliminate odors. Brushing removed surface dirt and debris. Spot cleaning addressed specific stains. Herbs like lavender were stored with clothing to deter insects and add pleasant scents. Despite these efforts, the limitations of pre-industrial cleaning methods meant that clothing was never as pristine as modern machine-washed items. However, this doesn't mean medieval people were content to live in filthy garments. They simply worked within the technological constraints of their time. Number 2. Seasonal splashing. How weather affected bathing. Did bathing habits change with the seasons? Absolutely. Medieval hygiene practices were heavily influenced by the weather and availability of resources. Summer naturally encouraged more frequent bathing. People could bathe in rivers, lakes, and other natural water sources when the weather was warm. Town records from various European cities show that swimming and bathing in natural waters was common during summer months, despite occasional concerns from authorities about public nudity and safety. Winter presented obvious challenges. Heating sufficient water for a bath required considerable fuel, making full immersion baths less frequent during cold months. Instead, people relied more on spot washing, cleaning the face, hands, and feet while leaving the rest of the body covered. The wealthy might still enjoy hot baths year-round, as they could afford the fuel and servants needed to heat and transport enough water. Spring traditionally included more thorough cleaning as part of the season's renewal. Many religious traditions incorporated special bathing rituals before major spring festivals or holy days. This seasonal rhythm of cleanliness became integrated into both practical household management and cultural traditions. Climate differences across Europe also created regional variations in bathing culture. Mediterranean regions, with their warmer climate and Byzantine or Islamic influences, generally maintained more elaborate bathing traditions than Northern Europe. Scandinavian cultures developed their own distinct bathing traditions centered around steam baths similar to modern saunas. Number 11. Smelly stereotypes. Why we got medieval hygiene all wrong. Why do we think medieval people were so dirty when evidence suggests otherwise? The misunderstanding stems from several historical factors. Renaissance and Enlightenment writers often portrayed the medieval period negatively, contrasting it unfavorably with classical antiquity and their own enlightened era. This narrative of the Dark Ages included assumptions about poor hygiene that weren't necessarily accurate but served to emphasize the supposed superiority of later periods. Victorian historians further cemented these stereotypes. The 19th century saw major public health reforms and changing attitudes toward cleanliness. Victorians looked back on earlier periods through the lens of their new sanitation standards and found them wanting, often exaggerating the differences to highlight their own progress. Changes in bathing practices after the medieval period contributed to the confusion. The late 16th through 18th centuries actually saw a decline in full-body bathing as medical theories suggested that water could carry disease into the body through open pores. During this period, people often cleaned themselves with dry methods like rubbing with linen cloths rather than immersion in water. These post-medieval practices were incorrectly attributed to the entire medieval period. Popular culture has perpetuated these misconceptions. Films, books, and television often portray medieval characters as filthy and foul-smelling for dramatic effect or comic relief, reinforcing inaccurate stereotypes with each retelling. So what's the final verdict on medieval cleanliness? Were people in the Middle Ages secretly cleaner than we've been led to believe all this time?